Let's continue with your phone calls. Let us now speak with Lisa in New York. Lisa, you're on the air.
Hi, Alex. I was wondering about what you were mentioning yesterday, that the government is planning on confiscating or somehow whoever has a retirement a plan isn't really going to get a hold of it. Can you explain to me what you meant by that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to let you go because your phone's so bad, but it's an important question. Thanks for calling. All right, this is a multifaceted cocktail. There's so many ways that they steal part of or all of pensions that it would make your head spin. But let me just cover one way. And this is at record levels worldwide, not just in the U.S. And you can search the term retirees losing pensions at record rates. And hundreds of articles will come up, literally hundreds. One trick that General Electric or Kodak or General Motors or any of these companies will do, they've all done it. Defense contractors are doing this at record levels as they move to China. Oh, yeah, they're moving to China. Over 90% of our drugs are now made in China, including vaccines. Side issue. Not a national security issue to the government, though. They love it. The Chinese are part of eugenicists. They have a one-child policy. They're helping spike the vaccines. Of course it's being made there. But I digress. One way that they do it is they will create a subsidiary. Take a famous computer microchip maker here in Austin. 6 years ago, they created a spinoff and basically got rid of everybody's pensions and shut down the old company and then hired Indian replacements and young people that had graduated here in the U.S., I guess to speak English, a small minority of them, to manage that. And that's just one example. So what they do is they create subsidiaries to take your pensions. Bush, 7 years ago, spearheaded a change in the law that allowed corporations to take your pensions, all or part of them. And then now you hear the term austerity in England, in the U.S. and Canada, in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, in Germany, that they've got to raise your taxes, cut welfare, but also cut your retirement. And that companies need to do that. And then, of course, Bloomberg has reported that they are, the federal regulators are now, quote, ordering, they don't have that power, but people follow the orders of these thugs, for private pension funds to be invested, quote, in failed banks. That's a Bloomberg headline. And so basically what they do is companies create subsidiaries, then they bankrupt the old company, kind of like Enron did, and then that's how they don't pay you your pension. Or they reduce your pension. And yes, that's happening everywhere. Let's continue here with your phone calls coming up in the next segment. But first, I wanted to go back into this. CNN host calls deadly terror bombings helpful to New World Order agenda. CNN host Rick Sanchez let slip a telling admission in response to the deadly bombings in Uganda during his show yesterday. The fact that such attacks are, quote, helpful for the military-industrial complex agenda to take over and occupy third world countries after AFRICOM, the United States African Command. Speaking with former CIA agent, Sanchez stated, "You know what's interesting about this? It's strange way the event is helpful to the cause of those of us who know how sadistic these fundamental, radical Islamic terrorists are, and if it helps get the message out that there are these, and you know, good guys, then so be it." You read that again. Islamic terrorists, and that if it helps get the message out that there are these guys, and that these guys are not the good guys, then so be it. And, of course, we just played the clip again. You can watch that clip up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. What an incredible admission by this guy. Who's up next here, John? All right, Norman in Ohio, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm okay, sir. Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about eugenics earlier. I'd like to equate circumcision with eugenics in America, this institution that started in 1955. It takes away the most erogenous zones of the male penis, results in a smaller head, which are connected to the brain. The nerves are connected to your brain. So it results in a smaller head size, less developed head and mental physical prowess. Foreskin restoration is possible. If I would recommend your listeners that are circumcised to Google foreskin restoration. I read an article last night saying Bill Clinton and the CDC want circumcision to be mandatory worldwide in order to fight AIDS.
I mean, that's incredible if that's true, because it is people's choice whether they get circumcised or not, and most Americans are not getting circumcised now. And, you know, there's arguments for and against, but let's go ahead and search that term. Bill Clinton calls for mandatory circumcision. Wow, if that's the case, that is outrageous.
I can tell you it's Ynet News. The title of the article is Clinton, circumcision dash the answer to AIDS. It's from ynetnews.com. They use this false evidence that came out of Africa saying that circumcision cuts AIDS transmission by 40%.
Well, we know AIDS is declassified to be a Navy bioweapon developed in the 70s as an autoimmune cancer virus, and we know what it does, and I've had top scientists on about that. So, and to claim that you could get AIDS through your skin, HIV is a very weak virus, and that it would have anything to do with it is just asinine. The answer is abstinence. But they've done studies, even the BBC's admitted it, where people who haven't had their hymen broken, women who have not lost their virginity, are getting HIV over there. And the only thing that the BBC admitted a few years ago it could be was, quote, the vaccines. But they said, oh, the UN must not be using a new needle each time. They must be sharing needles in the vaccination. Yeah, there it is. Incredible. London Guardian. Circumcision may be the answer to AIDS, says Clinton. All right. Thank you, sir. Glad you called. Dave, Matt, Jim, Kevin, many others, your call straight ahead. Stay with us.
Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans.
Okay, I'm going to continue with Dave, Matt, Jim, Kevin, Justin, and many others. I would like to hear listeners' take on CNN host Rick Sanchez saying that the terror attacks in Uganda that killed over 70 people are, quote, helpful, and that if it helps the agenda of the New World Order to launch all these wars, that so be it. And then we have a whole article with all these other globalists. In fact, later, if I have time the next hour, I want to read this whole story, quoting in other mainstream articles about how great 9/11 was and how we need another one. Now, if you read Operation Northwoods, where the U.S. government says they want to bomb D.C., bomb Miami, shoot people, and blame it on foreign countries for World War III, you'll understand the mindset of this. False flag is taught to U.S. Army captains and above who were in special ops. That was declassified or leaked by WikiLeaks 2 years ago. The Pentagon admitted it was real, but said we want to arrest whoever put this out. This was a manual being used up until 2004 that we know of. How to stage false flag terror attacks. So the Army is taught how to stage terror, okay? And they're all taught this, so they just go public with it. Hey, this is great. This people got killed. We can launch new wars. You know, top Pentagon brass sitting around with Rumsfeld. We have the audio of that linked on here going, sir, 9/11 sure helped us. It would sure be good if we had another one. Rumsfeld's, I know, but it's hard. It's, you know. And they're like, yes, sir, we know. You can tell they're talking about 9/11 truth, and they're all, we'll take care of it, sir. I mean, that made news, 4 years ago? So we will, actually, that was only 2.5 years ago. Boy, time flies. So that is some of what is coming up. But I'd like to hear callers comment on that. I think this is a pretty big deal. But continuing with the economic news, I want to recap this now. Central banks start to abandon the U.S. dollar. What an amazing statement from CNN. There's mounting evidence the central banks have little faith in the greenback. These days, can we blame them? And what are the central banks? The private holding consortiums of the top global banks worldwide, less than 10, 6 that dominate the U.S. They're all interconnected. They're globalists. They're against sovereignty. They want to take all of our sovereignty and all of our liberties and freedoms and transfer the laws to the international level so they can eradicate freedom. So there's CNN. Fortune magazine's also running with the same headline. Central banks start to abandon the U.S. dollar, and they go on and talk about how great the central bankers are and how they want to save us and how much we should love them, and when these are the culprits. But people are so ignorant about finance and government, they don't even know the Federal Reserve's private, though that's starting to change. Chinese rating agency strips Western nations of AAA status. China's leading credit rating agency has stripped America, Britain, Germany, and France of their AAA ratings, accusing Anglo-Saxon competitors of ideological bias in favor of the West. China is in a lip lock with the globalist. Mao Zedong was put in by the CIA. Again, that's declassified. They own most of our debt. But now they're going to bash the U.S. We'll lose our credit rating, so we'll pay even bigger interest rates to private banks for the right to have a U.S. dollar. So this is all part of moving away from the dollar and onto this global currency controlled by the communist Chinese, who they'll then use as an industrial powerhouse to muscle every other country into total deindustrialization, which then bankrupts the nations, which is a form of financial military warfare. And then they come in with the police state behind that to physically dominate the populations.